Right, good afternoon, everybody. My name's James Mason. I didn't do that. I'm also known as Ribs, and this is from Salesperson Social Engineer. So this talk is predominantly about how somebody non-technical can end up in a delivery role in a supremely tech-led industry. A couple of caveats. All views are my own and not that of Kinetic, my current employers, or any of my previous employers. Most images in this slide deck are stolen off the internet, aren't they all? And any war stories that I mention have been anonymised and have since been remediated. Honest. A little picture of Fred Durst in the corner there is just to say this is a bit of a rock star moment for me. I've been attending various B-sides since 2013, so to be finally talking at one, really appreciate B-sides for accepting my talk and genuinely appreciate you guys for listening to it. So thank you. So a couple of useless facts, my background. I'm currently up to 7 or 8 of my 9 lives, so hopefully I'll get through this in one piece. Bucket list stuff. I wanted to play poker in Vegas. My first ever game against all the seasoned pros, professional sponsored gamblers and genuine cowboys. I somehow ended up on the final table, so that was pretty awesome. And about 20 years ago, I once turned down a record deal, and I didn't know that I cared about this until I wrote this bloody slide there, but obviously I still do. So this was actually me in my early 30s. I wasn't academic, which is quite ironic that I'm now speaking at university. I had no plans when leaving school, didn't do well at college. I had a couple of roles, they were all sales. I was a wedding photographer for 5 years. So if you want to understand stressful circumstances, then try controlling 200 plus people, competing with the bar while keeping the bride happy, and more importantly, the bride's mum. That is stress. I think you can do anything after that, even a B-sides talk. So yeah, I was just thinking, was I a natural born red teamer? You know, was this always in me, or was it sales that led to this progression? And I was thinking, when I was sort of primary school age, I remember visiting the bank with my parents, and I would sit there. I'd map out the CCTV cameras. I would map out where there's any blind spots, and you know, if I held it up, which was the quickest route out. I was 8 years old. And little did I know, one day I'd be doing it as a job. That's pretty awesome. The second one, SeaWorld. My dad actually reminded me of this a few weeks ago. I forgot about it. I was, I think, 15. We were in Florida, and it was back when you thought SeaWorld cared about animals. I've got a mild caveat. I've got a mild obsession with sharks, and I was in Terrors of the Deep with my family, and this small guided tour group came through, all wearing lanyards, and just seizing the opportunity, I thought, awesome, I want a piece of this. So I joined the group, folded my arms just to lamely disguise the fact that I didn't have a badge, and the first thing I did was ask 2 or 3 really detailed and direct questions just to reinforce that I was supposed to be there. Little did I know, this tour was half a day, so I spent half a day around the backdrops of SeaWorld, stroking baby leopard sharks, hand-feeding sharks, which when you're 15 and you're not supposed to be there was pretty awesome, you know. Just quickly on this one, when I was a retail store manager, I quickly discovered if you have the correct alphanumeric keypad combination, you can actually input that in any order and the lock still opens. That still works to this day. But you find these in sort of less secure environments like retail, places like that. And then when I was another store manager for a photographic lab, it was incredibly quiet one day. This was a motion detector burglar alarm. And I just figured out how to move from one end of the store to the other without tripping it once. So partly out of boredom, partly out of curiosity, I guess some of this was already in me, to cut a long story long. So I fell into InfoSec literally by accident 10 years ago. I applied for a sales admin role at a company called Kinetic. For those of you who are not familiar, they're a global defence company. So their website at the time was full of images like this, lots of guns, fighter planes, robots, drones, but it didn't really say what they did. So this 3-stage interview, I wanted to get the job just to find out what the hell it was. Luckily, I was successful, and I was told, this was 10 years ago, your new job is going to be selling this world-class team of hackers. And I was like, excuse me? I didn't even know this sector existed back then. I'd never heard of the term pen testing. On my second day with the company, I was taken to a windowless room. I was shown how to pick locks, how to open a padlock with a can of Coke, and they compromised a laptop, which wasn't even turned on. I instantly felt about 12 years old and couldn't believe this was my new job, so my passion was born right then. And as cheesy as it sounds, it literally changed my life. I finally found what I was meant to do. So I decided the team was so awesome, I was not going to sit with my sales colleagues. It was nothing personal. But I wanted to be there for all the high-fiving every time they owned a new organisation. It was infectious. So I sat with those guys. Within 4 weeks, I was in front of CISOs, somebody with zero experience, talking CISOs who'd been in the industry 20 plus years, and I was suddenly telling them they're doing security wrong. So I think by sitting with a pen test team, this enabled that fast track that I really needed, sink or swim time. So I was naturally drawn to red teaming, and there are certain parallels with sales, you could argue. The team at the time, back in 2013, had been doing it about 13 years. It wasn't widely known. Careful. But they had considering the types of customers that Kinetic have, they had a 100% undetected record during their team exercises, which they were rightly very proud of. And it was my first formal gig, but 2 minutes before I was about to start, I thought, oh God, it's going to be me, isn't it? But I'm proud to this day. I've compromised some of the world's largest banks, insurance companies, legal firms, sensitive environments, and I share the same record and now one of the most experienced team members. It's all about team. So sales and red teaming, is it that crazy kind of leap from one to the other? I put this in because there's obvious social engineering parallels that a snake oil salesman such as this gent. He's manipulating people, persons in front of him to get his end reward, what you do on a red team gig, basically. So I'm just trying to find linkages of, is this such a crazy move? Because I've not heard of it happening, really, other than me. Dedication. Red teaming is a passion. It's definitely an addiction. I have to stop myself all the time whenever I see a door popped open or tailgate an opportunity. So I just put a couple of sort of more fun, less serious images in because basically anything kinetic I can't say too much about. So changing my physical appearance. Look at the length I went to look different on my physical gigs. I kept that look for about 5 years as well. It wasn't good. I may have accidentally stumbled into this scenario in London, and with a face like mine, I don't often take selfies, I must admit, but I took this just to send back to the team. And one of them replied, "Yeah, that's awesome. Is that you and your dad?" At which point I was like, "Oh God, yeah." Secondly, again, just innocently passing by. Middle image there is the press pit. The Beatles premiere has been screened globally. And I remember my brother texted me saying, "Oh, I'm just watching the Beatles premiere in the cinema. What are you up to?" I said, "Dad, can you see somebody waving?" And he sent a reply, 2 words, and the second word was off. As you can imagine, high security, Yoko Ono, there was Liam Gallagher, Madonna, Eric Clapton, obviously Paul and Ringo, Ron Howard. And there's me with a whacking great bag on the red carpet, or blue in this case. So pen testers, we all know you guys think outside of the box, do their management. The reason I put this slide in is because prior to lockdown, I approached a few pen test companies, and I wanted to make that jump from sales to red teaming. And I saw it as a dual role that I could sell the gig and deliver it. What's wrong with that? And not one of them could see it. It didn't fit any of their models. You were either sales with a target or you were delivery. I was like, oh man, I have to start again. But luckily, this is exactly what I'm doing at Kinetic. I cover technical pre-sales, the full sales cycle. I manage the exercises in a kind of CSAM role. I deliver the physical elements, some of the OSINT, and using my sales background, I then present the findings to senior management and board. So I'm actually doing 3 or 4 different roles. So the reason I put this in is, you get knockbacks in life, just keep going with it. A couple of war stories. As I say, these have been anonymised, and they're kind of old, so let's call them irrelevant. This was a large UK retailer. They had just invested X million on their head office security. They wanted us to do a physical exercise, and I think the whole point was they would get a clean bill of health, that the money they've spent has been well spent. Upon visiting the site, it was quite obvious. I mean, they had 20 feet high spiked steel fencing, massive security teams, perimeter controls with guard dogs. It was quite intimidating, which is awesome to see. And I was thinking, as an attacker, you'd definitely go for an easier target. We were told the second most secure target was their distribution centres, because they didn't want anybody obviously breaching them. So we got in on night one. We were also told, I should add, that the physical security teams at those sites will be physically violent and then ask you questions after. So that was like red rag to a bull. We had to check out these sites. So we got in, we booked out meeting rooms, we ordered pizza, all the standard silly stuff. Plugged into network, it was all a flat network. So just like old cybersecurity models where the investments in the perimeter, it was exactly the same, but literally in real life. We found a bunch of other stuff, and they sent out a company message that Kinetic sent ninjas in the night. So I was quite happy with that. The second one, this was a large financial organisation. They wanted to simulate an insider threat. They wanted one of their staff members to appear he's gone rogue. So they agreed a member of staff, our team were in a hotel nearby, sent him round, and this guy must have been 18. He looked like an apprentice. He was visibly uncomfortable with the whole situation. He was actually shaking. So we thought, they've set us up here, haven't they? They want this red team to fail because they don't want to look bad, which, if you game a red team exercise, you're getting absolutely no value out of it and a dangerous false sense of security. So we spent 45 minutes with this guy, calmed him right down, told him what we wanted him to do, why we were doing it. So I think the context helped him. Sent him back in, and he was awesome. I mean, I would have given him a job by the end of it, to the point we had to really calm him down. He even left his laptop with us, which was a bonus. But I'm interested in the human element, and it surprised me how somebody could go from visibly shaken about the situation to fully in with both feet, and it just made me think that companies dealing with malicious insiders, you can have access control in place and things like that. If they decide to do it, they're going to tend to, it's like jumping out of a plane. They're going to go all in. They're going to do it quick because they don't want to be caught in the act. And that is a hard challenge to deal with when you have to trust X amount of your staff, even with controls in place. So I was really interested in that one. The last one, this was a physical gig I was on before Christmas. I had 3 scenarios planned. We had 2 days to breach a very highly secure organisation. My first attempt was going to be cloning a staff card and swiping myself in. I hadn't used this gear since before lockdown, and while I was tailing the staff to the nearest Tesco Express, other supermarkets are available, and the nearest bar, I quickly discovered that this had a range of about 5 centimetres. And to add to that, the gents tended to have their passes on their belt, and the ladies tended to have lanyards, and either one of those areas I was not willing to get within 5 centimetres. So, with a red team exercise, you can do all the planning in the world, and very often stuff just happens in front of you that you've got to be able to react to, change your plans. Capture the flag. Current state of red teaming, I just put this in because at Kinetic, being a defence company, looking after the types of customers we do, our team had no furlough. We were fully deployed during lockdown. We were on site during the main lockdown, remote testing. Red teaming, the physical side dropped off with the world in lockdown. And it's come back, but I've got a handful of customers who they've gone back to the thoughts of 10 years ago that, it hasn't happened to us yet, which is such a dangerous mindset. Remote attacks went up 600% during lockdown, depending on whatever you read, but hackers were on lockdown too, right? And they've gone back to sort of burglar alarm syndrome, I'll buy an alarm after my house has been burgled. So I just wondered whether any of you have experienced the same, whether that be your own company or others. But it's dead interesting, I think, and a pretty dangerous mindset to be in. Just to conclude, because I've only got a few minutes, I beat myself up in this industry for far too long. The teams I work with are absolutely so awesome that I could never possibly be on their level, so I'm not going to try. So don't do it. There's proof that there are ways, and I absolutely love red teaming, if you can't tell. Again, by being persistent and making things happen. As I said, I had those knockbacks and stuck with it, and now this is pretty much my dream job. The only way it could get better is if I was full-time black teaming, back-to-back gigs all year round, and forget the sales. Make friends. From sitting with the pentest team in SHC, I've made an effort to make friends with the pentest team at all the other pentest companies I've worked for. You should see their faces when I walk through the labs. Who's this noob in a suit trying to talk to us? But I'm lucky enough to have pentest friends, blue team, red team, from each company I've worked for. And finally, as Roy Castle once sang, if you're that old, dedication is what you need. I've attended B-sides, as I say, for 10 years, Black Hat, a load of the DCs, all these events I've never seen another sales guy at. So if there's one thing I could say, if you're not in the industry already, it's possible, and good luck with it. All right, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Oh, question.
So you were saying about kind of red team, and around COVID it kind of died down. Do you find now, okay, it's opened up, but there's obviously a lot of people that still work from home, right?
Yeah.
How would you go about red teaming that?
Yeah, so trying to think about what I can say. Very early days of lockdown, that's exactly what we focused and worked on. Really, like the first few weeks of lockdown, because of the abrupt change and the customers that we look after. It was just a completely different world overnight, wasn't it? So, yeah, sorry that's a vague answer, but yeah, we focused on that from the outset pretty much.
Really stupid question. On one of the slides you had your role was CSAM. What's it stand for?
Cyber security attack manager, so they manage the customer during the red team and keep in contact and manage the engagement.
For a lot of us, it has a very different meaning.
Okay.
Child sex abuse material.
Oh, blimey. Yeah. Maybe I'll put in brackets what it stands for. Thank you.
Thank you for the clarity.
Yes, yeah.
Very odd role.
Yeah, sorry. I won't Google it.
Obviously, you like red teaming quite a lot.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on purple teaming?
Oh, brilliant. So we've seen an upsurge in that. The value that people and businesses get out of the collaborative side, launching attacks, both watching it together, what it does. Our red team's learning at the same time, so it's dual beneficial. We've had companies that are dual red team, and they've put that back for another purple team because that exercise has gone. So yeah, I've seen that really grow since again coming out of COVID. Perfect. Thank you very much. All right. Thanks.